Hey y'all, it's Mr. Giesbrecht here, and I'm recording something for you guys just because I want to add something to this topic, and here's why. It's because all of the resources, like the math, the worksheets, and the textbooks, and even what like most teachers will tell you, it's kind of not telling you the whole truth. And I would rather tell you guys the whole truth and like let you in on something here. Because I think otherwise you're going to have very reasonable questions and nobody's going to give you a reasonable answer. So here's the deal. The topic is order of operations. So if you need a title, there it is. Order of, well, I can spell, sure. I can spell, I just can't spell and talk at the same time. Okay, so what this means is, let's say we're doing something like 5 plus 4 times 3. And so like we've got two things going on in there. We've got adding and we've got multiplying. Now here's the question you probably don't have that everyone acts like you will have. Which ones do we do first, adding or multiplying? And I actually recorded one of these with really lousy audio quality, and then I had to start over again like 20 minutes ago. And when I said this, an example like this out loud, my 7-year-old Peter, he was like right over there, and he was like, shouts out the answer. And he was right, except he wasn't right, which is annoying. So here's what he would have done. He would have been like 5 plus 4, that's 9. Okay, so that's 5 plus 4 is 9. What's 9 times 3? Well, then we have to remember what 9 times 3 is. That's mildly annoying.
That's 27.
27? Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so like what's wrong with this? Can't the answer just be 27? And every sensible human being on earth would normally say, yeah, unless they've learned enough math. And then they would go, no, actually, you're doing it wrong. And then every sensible person who hasn't done high school math is like, what do you mean I'm doing it wrong? And they'd say, oh, you're supposed to do multiplication first. Okay, so here's what you're supposed to do, and then I'll tell you why they make why that's a supposed to. Because the supposed to part is like, well, what do you mean supposed to? Math is supposed to be like logical, right? You can't just throw random stuff at me and tell me that's how it's supposed to be done. That's not math. That's just made up rules. Math is supposed to have reasons for its rules, I hope. Okay. So here's the rule. The rule is step one, do you have like brackets or something? So do you have like any kind of grouping symbols, like brackets or something? So like brackets, or sometimes like a big fraction line can be like that. Like someday you might see something like this and be like, what's this big weird fraction thing? And then second thing is, do you multiply or divide? Oh, and this is like the order of like which things happen first, okay? And then the third one is add or subtract. So here's the magical rules. And there's actually something hiding right in here, kind of a 1.5 that I'm not writing down because you guys haven't done anything with exponents yet, so don't worry about that. Okay. So according to these rules, according to these rules, I should do the 4 times 3 first. So I would end up doing, well, I guess it would become 5 plus, well, 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, so 5, so then it's like 5 plus 12, and then that becomes 17. Totally different answer, right? So like it does matter. It definitely makes a difference which order you do them in. Now, the part that nobody wants to say. Why the heck are people making up this rule? And let me be clear, it is made up. I'm not going to lie to you. There's a reason it's made up. And the reason is because mathematicians are lazy. I can almost hear you asking, Mr. G, why would people make up an extra rule to be lazy? That doesn't make any sense. It's more work and more thinking. That's not lazy at all. Okay, so here's the deal. At some point in your mathematical future, you might end up having to deal with something like this. 13 B Z X. I'm not even going to put X because it looks like a multiply sign. I'm just going to use other letters, even though usually they put X's in there. BZ squared plus 23Z minus 13. Okay, that's ugly. You guys don't have to deal with this yet, so don't panic. But I want you to see it because the way this is written down is actually kind of the reason for some of this order of operations stuff. So what I mean by that is, what's hiding in here that they don't write down is this actually like a multiply and a multiply and a multiply. And if you had to write down all of those multiplication symbols, the bigger and uglier this gets, the more those multiplication symbols would make things even uglier. It would be like 13 multiply b multiply z, exponent thing you don't even know about yet, plus 23 times z minus 13. So here's part of it. Part of it is that people want to just start throwing away these. They don't even want to write them down anymore. The other reason for it is that there's actually like part of the reason for wanting to make these things look like they're sort of closer together is because the way they behave later on, and this is like big picture thinking, the way they behave, they kind of do behave like the way what's the stuff that's being multiplied together actually kind of forms a little group. Okay, so that's all you need to think about that. That's kind of like, that's algebra stuff that's happening like way later. So who cares about that? That's like grade 9 or something. We don't need grade 9 right now. But what we do need to know is that there is a reason for these rules. They are made up. It's not the only way to do things. The mathematicians could have invented a different way of writing these things down, but multiplication is prioritized when you write down a math expression because it it gives some structure to the whole thing in a way that helps make sense later on. So you have to unfortunately get a little bit used to seeing it before it fully starts to click, and that's sort of irritating. So like, you have my full sympathies and apologies for that. Not going to lie to you. So here's another quick example, and then I'll let the TOC take over instead of me talking so much. Let's say I have 7 plus 3 minus 2 times 4, but this time I've got brackets around something. Okay, what do I do first? Well, let's check the rules. What it says is, step 1 is I look for grouping symbols. Are there any grouping symbols? Yeah, the brackets, when there's brackets written in there, that's a way of telling someone you gotta do that first. So the first thing we're gonna do is 3 minus 2. Okay, so what I can do is rewrite the whole rest of it. The bracketed part becomes just 1, and then I'm left with this. Okay, now I need to check. Okay, grouping symbols are all gone. Now I need to check, is there any multiplication? Yes, there is. So I got to do this part next. So that's going to mean it becomes 7 plus 4. Now I can do the adding or subtracting. Done deal. It's 11. Finished. All right. Mr. Wang or whoever is there with you guys has some other stuff and can help you out with this. I just wanted to give you a little bit of the why, because this topic is important but also a bit of a pain. If you want to talk more later on about like other random ways that people could have chosen to set up these rules differently, that would be funny to think about later on. And I can tell you that I've worked with calculators that do all sorts of strange things. I'm going to stop rambling. See you guys later.